The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council started just 6 hours after the last Vakari ship was destroyed. Representatives from 43 different species gathered in the Great Hall of Nexus Prime, their voices creating a buzz of panic and confusion that had never been heard before in the chamber. Ambassador Dae-Ho Kim walked into the hall wearing the same simple brown robes he had worn for 23 years. But everything else about him was different. His shoulders were straight instead of hunched. His eyes looked directly at the other delegates instead of down at the floor. Most importantly, he was smiling. The Zephyrian representative, a tall being made of living crystal, pointed one of its sharp appendages at Dae-Ho. "You, human. Explain what happened to the Vakari fleet. Our sensors detected massive energy signatures from your system. What weapons do you possess?" Dae-Ho took his time walking to the speaking platform at the center of the hall. For over 2 decades, he had begged for permission to use this platform. Usually, the council allowed him to speak for just a few minutes at the end of meetings, after all the important business was finished. Today, everyone wanted to hear what he had to say. "Honored delegates," Dae-Ho began, his voice carrying clearly through the hall. "I think there has been a misunderstanding about humanity's capabilities. We are not the weak, helpless species you believed us to be." A Nephron delegate, floating in its containment suit filled with toxic gas, spoke in a voice like wind through caves. "Impossible. Our intelligence reports show humans have only basic technology. Chemical rockets. Metal ships. No advanced weapons," Dae-Ho smiled wider. "Your intelligence reports show exactly what we wanted them to show. For 300 years, humanity has been very careful about what information we allowed you to discover." The hall erupted in angry voices. Delegates from dozens of species demanded answers. How had humans hidden such powerful weapons? Why had they pretended to be weak? What else were they hiding? Dae-Ho waited for the noise to die down before continuing. "We have recordings of every council meeting for the past 3 centuries. Would you like me to play some of the more interesting comments about humanity?" He activated a holographic projector that filled the air above the hall with images and sounds. The first recording was from 50 years ago, showing a Vakari delegate laughing as he described humans as barely evolved apes who should be grateful for whatever scraps we throw them. The next recording was more recent, a Zephyrian representative suggesting that human colonies should be relocated to make room for more advanced species. The recording showed other delegates nodding in agreement. More recordings followed. Decades of insults, dismissals, and casual cruelty directed at humanity, plans to limit human expansion, discussions about treating humans as servants rather than equals. The evidence was overwhelming and damning. Every slight, every insult, every plan to keep humanity weak and subservient, Dae-Ho said calmly. "We recorded it all. We remembered it all. And we prepared for the day when we could respond to it all." Near the edge of the station, Fleet Admiral Boram Shin watched the council meeting through the viewports of her command ship. Behind her, visible through the transparent aluminum windows, was the planet ship Atlas. The massive vessel cast shadows across the entire diplomatic station, its bulk blocking out stars and making the station's light seem tiny by comparison. Boram had positioned Atlas carefully so that every delegate in the council hall could see it through the windows. The message was clear without being spoken. Humanity was no longer asking for respect. They were demanding it. "Admiral," her communications officer reported, "we're detecting movement from several alien fleets. The Zephyrian Collective is mobilizing their crystal ships. The Nephron Commonwealth is moving gas giant defense platforms." Boram nodded. She had expected this. Some species would try to form coalitions against humanity, hoping that together they could match human firepower. They would learn soon enough that 300 years of preparation could not be overcome by hastily assembled alliances. "Send a message to Admiral Park," Boram ordered. "Tell her the Zephyrians are moving. Time for Intelligence Director Jang to reveal our other surprise." On Earth, Intelligence Director Kyungmin Jang received Admiral Shin's message in her underground command center. Around her, walls covered with screens showed intelligence operations across the galaxy. For decades, her agents had been embedded in alien societies, gathering information and waiting for this moment. "Activate Operation Deep Cover," she ordered her staff. "All agents are authorized to reveal their positions and begin intelligence dumps." Across the galaxy, aliens who thought they knew their neighbors suddenly discovered they had been living next to human spies for years. The Zephyrian military commander who had been planning attacks on human colonies found out that his trusted advisor was actually Agent Han-Sol Park, who had been feeding human intelligence detailed reports about Zephyrian capabilities for 15 years. The Nephron gas giant city of Typhon discovered that their chief engineer, responsible for maintaining their defensive platforms, was Agent Yujin Quan. She had been quietly sabotaging critical systems and mapping every weakness in their defenses. Even worse for the aliens, the humans had not just been watching. They had been learning. Human scientists had studied alien technology for centuries, improved it, and built better versions. The weapons that had seemed so advanced to the Vakari were actually based on designs that were hundreds of years old by galactic standards. Back in the council hall, Daeho continued his speech as reports of discovered human agents flooded in from across the galaxy. You see, honored delegates, while you were making jokes about primitive humans, we were learning everything about you. Your military capabilities, your defensive positions, your political weaknesses, your technological limitations. A new delegate entered the hall, a tall humanoid from the Centauri Republic, one of the galaxy's oldest and most powerful civilizations. This is intolerable, the Centauri announced. No single species can be allowed to threaten the stability of the galaxy. We demand that humanity surrender these weapons and submit to galactic oversight. Daeho looked at the Centauri delegate with something that might have been pity. Submit to whom? The same species that spent 3 centuries treating us like animals? The same civilizations that planned to enslave our colonies and steal our resources? He gestured toward the windows where Atlas loomed over the station. We tried diplomacy for 300 years. We begged for fair treatment. We asked for equal representation. You gave us scraps and told us to be grateful. The hall fell silent as the full implications of the situation became clear. Humanity had not just built better weapons. They had played a longer game than any other species had imagined possible. While the galaxy had been focused on short-term politics and temporary alliances, humans had been preparing for a war that might last centuries, and now that war was about to begin. Admiral Taejin Huang stood in the command center of the massive ship Prometheus, watching the Vakari fleet approach Earth through his tactical display. The ship around him was so large that it had its own weather systems. Cities were built into its armored surface, connected by tunnels that stretched for hundreds of kilometers. Manufacturing plants inside the ship could build entire fleets of smaller vessels. The Prometheus was not just a warship, it was a mobile civilization. All weapon systems are online, reported his weapons officer. Antimatter cannons are charged and ready. Gravitational wave generators are standing by. Taejin nodded slowly. He had been captain of this ship for 15 years, but this would be the first time anyone outside humanity saw what it could really do. The Prometheus had been disguised as a dead dwarf planet for over a century, slowly drifting through the outer solar system while the galaxy ignored it completely. Signal from Admiral Park, came another voice. All planet ships report ready, awaiting your command to decloak. Taejin looked at the Vakari fleet on his screen. 200 ships that the aliens thought made them unstoppable. Each Vakari warship was impressive by galactic standards, 5 kilometers of advanced technology and heavy weapons. Against any normal enemy, they would have been more than enough to win. But the Vakari had made one terrible mistake. They thought humanity was normal. Open a channel to the Vakari fleet, Taejin ordered. All frequencies. The communication officer worked quickly. Channel open, sir. They can hear us. Taejin smiled and spoke in a calm, clear voice. Vakari fleet. This is Admiral Taejin Huang of the Human Space Force. You have entered our territory without permission and threatened our people. We strongly suggest you turn around and leave immediately. On the Vakari flagship, war leader Thexvar laughed so hard that his scales rattled. Did you hear that? He called to his officers. The humans have a space force now. How terrifying. He activated his own communicator. Human Admiral, you are in no position to make demands. Surrender now or we will destroy your pathetic planet. We gave you a chance, Taejin said quietly. Remember that. He switched to the fleet communication channel. All ships drop stealth shields. Show them what humanity has been building. Across the solar system, 12 massive objects suddenly appeared on every sensor in the Vakari fleet. What had looked like empty space or harmless asteroids moments before now revealed themselves as the largest warships anyone had ever seen. Each planet ship was hundreds of kilometers across, bristling with weapons that dwarfed anything in the Vakari arsenal. On the Vakari flagship, officers stared at their screens in shock. "Sir," one of them stammered, "sensors are detecting 12 massive objects. Each one is—" "Sir, they're larger than our entire fleet combined." Thexvar felt his blood turn cold as he looked at the tactical display. The objects were positioned perfectly around his fleet. They had been there all along, watching and waiting. His surprise attack had walked straight into a trap. "How is this possible?" he whispered. "Intelligence said the humans had no real military. They said human technology was centuries behind ours." He was starting to understand that human intelligence was much better than Vakari intelligence. Navigation Officer Yunji Han coordinated the movements of the human fleet from her position aboard the Prometheus. Her screens showed the exact location of every Vakari ship, along with their speed, heading, and weapon status. Human sensors were so advanced that she could count the number of aliens on each enemy vessel. "Vakari fleet is attempting to retreat," she reported to Admiral Huang. Should we let them go? Taejin considered this for a moment. The smart thing would be to let them run back to their empire and spread word about humanity's real strength. Fear was often more useful than destruction, but the Vakari had threatened Earth. They had planned to conquer humanity and enslave millions of people. Some lessons needed to be taught with more than just words. Negative, he decided. They came here to fight. We should give them what they want. The Prometheus moved first. Despite its enormous size, the ship was surprisingly fast. Space folding drives let it appear anywhere in the solar system almost instantly. One moment it was near Jupiter. The next moment it was right behind the Vakari fleet, close enough that its shadow fell across dozens of enemy ships. "Target their command ship," Taejin ordered. "Antimatter cannon, single shot. Let's not be wasteful." The weapon that fired from the Prometheus was designed to crack moons. Against a ship only 5 kilometers long, it was massive overkill. The Vakari flagship simply ceased to exist, along with a sphere of space around it that glowed white-hot for several seconds. The rest of the Vakari fleet panicked. Ships scattered in all directions, firing wildly at targets too large to miss but too heavily armored to damage. Plasma beams that could melt through normal ship armor barely left scorch marks on the planet ships' hulls. "Sir," reported the weapons officer, "enemy fire is not penetrating our outer armor. Damage reports show surface scratches only." Taejin was not surprised. Human engineers had spent 3 centuries making sure these ships could survive anything the galaxy could throw at them. The armor was made from materials that did not exist anywhere else, using techniques that human scientists had developed in secret. Around the solar system, other planet ships began to engage the fleeing Vakari vessels. Each human ship could destroy dozens of enemy vessels with a single salvo, but the admirals were careful to target their shots precisely. They wanted prisoners and wreckage to study, not just empty space. The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes. When it was over, the mighty Vakari invasion fleet was nothing but debris and a few captured ships. Not a single human vessel had taken any real damage. But the real victory was not the destruction of the Vakari fleet. The real victory was that the galaxy had finally seen what humanity was capable of. Every major power had spies and sensors watching this battle. By now, emergency meetings were starting in capital cities across dozens of star systems. The age of treating humanity like a weak, harmless species was over. The galaxy was about to learn that humans had been playing a much longer game than anyone realized, and humanity had been winning that game from the very beginning. War leader Thexvar stood on the command deck of his flagship, watching Earth grow larger on the screen in front of him. The small blue planet looked so peaceful and defenseless. No massive orbital stations, no weapon platforms floating in space, just a few tiny satellites and what looked like mining ships in the asteroid belt. The Vakari had been planning this attack for months. Their spies reported that humanity had only basic weapons and old-style rockets. The humans were spread across just a few planets and could barely defend themselves against pirates, let alone a real military force. This would be the easiest conquest in Vakari history. "Send the surrender message," Thexvar ordered, his sharp teeth showing in what passed for a smile. "Tell the humans they have 1 hour to give up their planet. After that, we take it by force." Behind him, 200 Vakari warships spread out in perfect formation. Each ship was 5 kilometers long and packed with enough weapons to destroy a city. The Vakari had conquered dozens of worlds with smaller fleets than this one. Against the weak humans, it would be like crushing insects. On Earth, Captain So-Young Choi received the Vakari message in her command center, deep under the mountains of Korea. Around her, dozens of human officers watched their screens with calm faces. They had been waiting for this moment for 300 years. Acknowledged, So-Young said into her communicator, patching through to Earth Defense Command. She looked at her communications officer. Send the coded signal to Admiral Park. Operation Silent Thunder is now active. The communications officer nodded and sent a simple message that looked like a routine mining report. But hidden in the signal was the code that would change everything. After 3 centuries of waiting, humanity was finally ready to show the galaxy what they had really been building. In the asteroid belt, Admiral Hyojin Park received the signal aboard what looked like an ordinary mining control ship. She had been waiting for this moment her entire life. Her parents had worked on the project. Her grandparents had helped design the first plans. Now it was her turn to see those centuries of work finally pay off. All ships, this is Admiral Park. She spoke into her communicator. Authorization code Silent Thunder 77 Alpha. You are cleared to begin awakening sequence. All across the solar system, signals went out to what the aliens thought were dead rocks floating in space. Asteroids that had been slowly spinning for hundreds of years suddenly began to change. Ceres was the first to respond. Engineer Woo-Sung Lee felt the vibration through the asteroid's hull as massive fusion reactors came online for the first time. The lights around him changed from the dim red of standby mode to the bright white of full power. Throughout the asteroid, systems that had been waiting patiently in sleep mode began to wake up. Reactor 1 online, came a voice over the ship's communication system. Reactor 2 online. All primary systems responding normally. The asteroid Ceres was no longer just a piece of rock. It was becoming what it had always been meant to be, a weapon of war. On the outside, Ceres still looked like an asteroid. But now, sections of its surface began to slide apart, revealing the true ship underneath. Massive gun barrels emerged from hidden openings. Shield generators created an invisible barrier around the ship that could stop almost any attack. Most importantly, the ship's main engines started to warm up. The Vakari fleet was still focused on Earth, waiting for the humans to surrender. Their sensors showed the same thing they had seen for months: a few small human ships near the planet, and some boring mining operations in the asteroid belt. Nothing had changed as far as they could tell. That was because human technology was much better than Vakari sensors. The planet ships were designed to hide from any detection system the aliens had. Even when their weapons powered up and their shields activated, they still looked like ordinary asteroids to alien eyes. Dr. Min Ho-yoon sat in his control center on the moon, watching as reports came in from across the solar system. Ceres is fully active, he announced to his team. Vesta is at 90%. Pallas and Hygeia are coming online now. On his main screen, he could see the locations of 12 different asteroid ships scattered throughout the solar system. Each one was the size of a small moon and carried enough firepower to destroy fleets. The Vakari had brought 200 ships to conquer humanity. They had no idea they were outnumbered. "Sir," one of his technicians called out, "Vakari fleet is beginning final approach to Earth. They're demanding immediate surrender." Minho smiled. "Put me through to Captain Choi on Earth. It's time to give the Vakari their answer." Back on Earth, So-Young received the call from Dr. Yoon. Around her, the command center was busy with activity as officers prepared for the first real space battle in human history. But So-Young felt calm. Everything was going exactly as planned. "This is Earth Defense Command," she said into her communicator, broadcasting on all frequencies so the Vakari could hear. "We have received your surrender demand. We need more time to consider our response. Please wait while we contact our government leaders." It was perfect acting. So-Young sounded scared and desperate, exactly like the Vakari expected humans to sound. The alien fleet slowed down, giving humanity a few more minutes to surrender peacefully. They had no idea those minutes were all Admiral Park needed to finish bringing her ships online. In space near Ceres, Admiral Park watched as the last systems activated. Her flagship was ready for battle. Around the solar system, 11 other planet ships were also reporting ready status. After 300 years of preparation, humanity was about to show the galaxy what real power looked like. "All ships, this is Admiral Park," she said calmly. "Target the Vakari fleet. Prepare to drop stealth shields on my command. Today we stop pretending to be weak. The Vakari fleet continued toward Earth, completely unaware that they were flying into a trap centuries in the making. In just a few more minutes, they would learn that humanity was not the weak species they thought they were conquering. They were about to face an enemy that had been preparing for this exact moment since the day humans first met aliens and learned their place in the galaxy. That place, it turned out, was not at the bottom. It was at the top. 6 months after the Vakari defeat, President Chang-Ho Park stood in the rebuilt council chamber on Earth, looking out at representatives from across the galaxy. The room was much larger than the old meeting hall on Nexus Prime, because now every species wanted to attend human diplomatic meetings. The balance of power had shifted completely. Behind Chang-Ho, massive holographic displays showed the current positions of the human fleet. 12 planet ships patrolled former alien territories, each one serving as both protector and reminder of humanity's overwhelming strength. The galaxy had learned to respect human authority very quickly. "Welcome to the first meeting of the Reformed Galactic Council," Chang-Ho announced. His voice was calm and friendly, but everyone in the room understood the iron beneath the silk. "I hope this arrangement will be more productive than our previous meetings." The Zephyrian representative, the same crystal being who had once ignored human requests, now sat in the front row hanging on every word. Their entire military had surrendered without firing a shot after seeing what happened to the Vakari. Crystal ships that had once seemed unbreakable now served as orbital decorations around human-controlled worlds. "President Park," the Zephyrian said carefully, "our people wish to know about the terms of our cooperation agreement." Chang-Ho smiled. It was not a cruel smile, but it was not entirely kind either. "The terms are simple. Follow galactic law as we define it. Contribute resources to maintaining peace and stability. Treat all species with respect and dignity. Any questions?" There were no questions. The aliens had learned that arguing with humans was both pointless and dangerous. In space near the former Vakari homeworld, Captain Ye Jin Song commanded the planet ship Titan as it slowly orbited the red planet below. The world had once been the center of a mighty empire that controlled dozens of star systems. Now it was a human protectorate, its people learning to live under new management. "Captain," her science officer reported, "the demonstration site is ready. All civilian populations have been evacuated from the target area." Yejin nodded and activated the ship's main weapon. She had chosen an uninhabited continent on the planet's far side, away from any cities or settlements. The beam that lanced down from Titan was not the ship's most powerful weapon, but it was impressive enough for the lesson she needed to teach. The continent cracked apart like an egg, magma flowing up through fissures in the planetary crust. Within minutes, an area the size of Australia was nothing but molten rock and steam. The planet's remaining Vakari leaders, watching from their capital city on the other side of the world, got the message very clearly. "This is what happens to planets that resist human authority," Yejin announced over all frequencies. "We prefer cooperation, but we are prepared for other options as well." The Vakari Empire formally surrendered 3 hours later. Meanwhile, in the gas giant cities of the Nephron Commonwealth, the situation was more complicated but no less decisive. The Nephron people lived in floating cities within the atmospheres of gas giants, making direct assault difficult. But humans had found a more elegant solution. Admiral Hee-Jin Park, now promoted to Supreme Fleet Commander, had positioned planet ships at the edge of each Nephron system. The ships did not attack. They simply waited, blocking all traffic in and out of the systems. Within weeks, the gas giant cities began running out of essential supplies that could only be obtained through interstellar trade. The Nephrons learned that even their gas giant homes could not protect them from an enemy patient enough to simply wait outside and starve them into submission. They joined the Reformed Galactic Council without resistance. Back on Earth, engineer Woo-Sung Lee walked through the construction yards where humanity's next generation of ships was taking shape. The planet ships had been impressive, but they were just the beginning. The new vessels under construction were not planet-sized. They were star-sized. "How long until the first stellar ship is operational?" asked Dr. Min Ho-yoon, who had been promoted to head of the new galactic development project. Woo-Sung checked his tablet, reviewing construction schedules and resource allocation charts. "The prototype should be ready for testing in 18 months. Full deployment of the stellar fleet within 5 years." Min Ho nodded with satisfaction. The galaxy thought planet ships were the ultimate expression of human power. Soon they would learn that humanity always planned several steps ahead. While aliens were still trying to understand how to fight planet-sized vessels, humans were already building ships that could harness the power of entire stars. In her new office overlooking the Pacific Ocean, Intelligence Director Kyung-Min Jang reviewed reports from human agents across the galaxy. The spy networks that had taken centuries to build were now operating openly, helping to maintain order in the new galactic government. "Director," her assistant reported, "we're detecting some resistance movements in the outer systems. A few species are trying to organize secret coalitions against human authority." Kyung-Min was not surprised. It would take time for some aliens to accept the new reality. Standard response: infiltrate their organizations, map their leadership, and present them with evidence of how much we already know about their activities. Most resistance movements collapse once they realize they have no secrets from us. Her assistant nodded and left to carry out the orders. Kyung-Min turned back to her reports, noting with satisfaction that most species were adapting well to human leadership. Trade was flourishing under the new system. Wars between alien species had stopped completely. Crime rates were dropping across the galaxy as human justice systems were implemented. The irony was not lost on her. The aliens had spent centuries believing humans were too peaceful to be effective leaders. Now they were discovering that human peace came with human strength to enforce it. The galaxy was more stable and prosperous than it had been in thousands of years. President Chung-Ho Park ended the council meeting and walked to his private office, where a secure communication link connected him to all 12 planet ship commanders. The faces on his screen represented the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever seen. "Status report," he requested. "All systems secure," reported Admiral Park. "No organized resistance. Trade routes are operating normally. The transition to human authority is proceeding ahead of schedule." Chang-Ho allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. 300 years of planning and preparation had led to this moment. Humanity had gone from being the galaxy's weakest species to its unquestioned rulers in less than a year. The transformation was so complete that some aliens were already forgetting that humans had ever been considered inferior. That was fine with Chang-Ho. Let them forget the old days when humans begged for scraps and permission. The new generation of aliens would grow up in a galaxy where human authority was simply the natural order of things. They would never know what it was like to live under the chaos and violence of the old system. As he prepared for the next day's meetings, Chang-Ho reflected on how perfectly the plan had worked. Humanity had shown the galaxy that patience was not weakness. Careful preparation was not cowardice. And sometimes, the species that seemed most peaceful was actually the most dangerous of all. The galaxy was sleeping peacefully under human protection, and this time humanity would make sure it stayed that way. Ambassador Dae-Ho Kim walked slowly through the shining halls of HFY, the galaxy's most important meeting place. His simple brown robes made him look small and weak next to the other aliens who passed by. The Vakari warriors with their sharp teeth and red scales laughed at him. The tall Zephyrian beings made of living crystal ignored him completely. Even the floating gas cloud Nephrons seemed to think he was not worth their time. This was exactly what Dae-Ho wanted. He had been playing this role for 23 years now. Every day he acted like humanity was nothing special. Just another small species from a tiny corner of space, happy to get whatever scraps the big powers would give them. He begged for basic technology. He asked permission to trade in the outer systems. He made humanity look weak and helpless. The other species ate it up. They loved feeling superior to the simple humans who could barely leave their own solar system. The Vakari especially enjoyed making jokes about how humans still used chemical rockets and metal ships. If only they knew the truth. Dae-Ho's communication device buzzed softly. A message from home. He read it quickly, then deleted it. The message was simple but made him smile inside. Project moving as planned. Stay the course. It was from Admiral Hyjin Park, the woman who commanded humanity's greatest secret. Far away from the bright lights and politics of HFY, Admiral Hyjin Park floated in the darkness of space near the asteroid Ceres. Around her, massive mining ships worked day and night. At least that's what they looked like from the outside. The ships had the right energy signatures. They made the right radio signals. They even dumped the right kind of mineral waste that real mining operations would create. But Admiral Park knew better. She knew that deep inside Ceres, Thousands of humans were working on something that would change everything. They were not mining rocks. They were building the largest warships the galaxy had ever seen. The asteroid Ceres was completely hollow now. The mining ships had carefully removed every bit of rock and metal from inside, leaving a perfect sphere of empty space almost 800 kilometers across. But they didn't throw the material away. Instead, they used it to build walls inside the asteroid that were stronger than any metal the aliens knew about. Engineer Woo-Sung Lee wiped sweat from his face as he checked another section of the ship's armor. The walls around him stretched up and down farther than he could see. Each piece of metal was placed perfectly, welded by machines more precise than human hands could ever be. The armor was thick enough to stop any weapon the aliens had, but that was just the beginning. Woo-Sung had been working inside Ceres for 8 years now. He remembered when they first started digging. Back then it seemed impossible. How could they hide something so big? How could they build ships the size of planets without anyone finding out? But human engineers were good at solving impossible problems. The trick was to make everything look normal from outside. The asteroid's surface still looked like rock and ice. Special projectors made fake heat signatures that matched what a real asteroid should have. The mining ships used gravity generators to keep the asteroid spinning at exactly the right speed. Even if alien scouts came close, all their sensors would show them was a boring chunk of rock with some humans digging for minerals. But inside, Ceres was becoming something terrible and beautiful. The hollow center held the ship's main power source, a fusion reactor the size of a city. Around it, weapons that could crack planets hung ready in the darkness. The ship had enough firepower to destroy entire fleets, and enough armor to survive almost anything the galaxy could throw at it. Woo-Sung's radio crackled to life. "Section 77 complete," came a voice from somewhere far below. "Moving to Section 78. All around the asteroid, teams of workers were finishing the last details. After 300 years of secret construction, the ship was almost ready. 300 years. That's how long humanity had been preparing for this moment. It started not long after humans first met the aliens and learned their place in the galaxy. The aliens made it very clear that humans were weak, stupid, and not worth worrying about. They gave humanity a few star systems on the edge of civilized space and told them to be grateful. Most humans were grateful, at least at first. They were happy to have alien technology and the chance to trade with other species. But some humans looked at the way the aliens treated them and got angry. More importantly, they got smart. The plan started small, a few secret meetings between human leaders, some quiet research into alien technology, nothing that would attract attention. But as the years passed, the plan grew bigger and more daring. Humans were good at keeping secrets, especially when their survival depended on it. The key was patience. Humans could wait longer than any other species in the galaxy. While the aliens fought wars and made deals and broke apart old alliances, humans just quietly worked. They learned everything they could about alien technology, then made it better. They studied alien military tactics, then found ways to beat them. Most importantly, they built ships that could hide in plain sight. Ceres was just the first one. In asteroid belts around the solar system, more planet ships were taking shape. Each one was designed to look like something harmless. A dead moon, a large asteroid, even an ice comet. But inside each one, humans were building weapons that could level cities and shields that could stop armies. Admiral Park checked her watch. Almost time for the daily report to Earth. She would tell them that mining operations were going well. Production was on schedule. Nothing unusual to report, just another boring day of humans digging rocks in space, while the galaxy ignored them completely. She allowed herself a small smile as she prepared the message. Let the aliens keep thinking humans were weak and harmless. Let them keep making jokes about human technology. Let them keep believing that humanity would always bow down to stronger species. They would learn the truth soon enough. And when they did, the galaxy would never be the same again.